Hey everyone, Eric and Kim here. We are going to do a review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. This will be a non-spoiler review. We are talking about doing a spoiler chat that we realize will probably be a little later than we meant for it to be because of the holiday weekend. But we're going to try to do that this coming Monday. But this is non-spoilers, just our first thoughts going off of trailers and promotion, what they've talked about there. Kim, first of all, thank you for doing this. What time is it for you right now?
It is 1 a.m.
This is 1 a.m. for Kim, who just got home after an hour train ride after seeing
Yeah.
the movie. Yeah. So thank you for giving your all to do this review. But let's talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Basic plot setup. It is not a secret that this movie has died. That, like in real life, the tragic loss of Chadwick Boseman, this movie T'Challa has passed away, and we see that Wakanda, of course, is in mourning, but specifically his family is in mourning. His mother, Ramonda, his sister, Shuri, and into the mix of that comes Namor, the arrival of a long-awaited character in the MCU, and his people. They're from an underwater city called Talokan, and feeling threatened by humans, taking their resources. They reveal themselves. They begin attacking the surface world and targeting a young scientist named Riri Williams, who's a genius at MIT. And basically the Wakandans get mixed into this brewing battle with Namor and his people. And meanwhile, the question of the legacy of the Black Panther and if that mantle can continue and should continue is a center stage thing as the film goes on. So, Kim, obviously this movie comes to us. It would have been a much awaited sequel no matter what, because the first movie was so beloved. The first movie was a standout amongst one of the most popular franchises ever anyway with the MCU. And then it has this extra onus and sort of, importance because of such a tragic loss of Chadwick Boseman. All that said, what were your first, and this is very much your first thoughts. I know you saw this movie like an hour and a half ago. What are your first thoughts on Black Panther Wakanda Forever?
Well, I think that they've tackled the whole Chadwick Boseman issue really graciously, and I
Mhm.
thought it was a lovely, and moving and sensitively executed tribute to him without it becoming, well, I suppose overly sentimental, or without it impacting, maybe in an overwhelming way on the rest of the story. The pieces have fit together really, really well, in my opinion. And one of the things that I loved about it was that the women take center stage as well, in his absence, and they were all brilliant. So yeah, love to see those women allowed to shine as actresses and characters.
Yeah, I think the first movie, right, it built such a great supporting cast for him that was predominantly female.
Mm.
And yeah, they really step up here, and I think, really show that they can lead this franchise. This is a movie that's a little strange because you almost kind of, graded on a weird, curve. I don't know if that's the right word, but the fact that it had to deal with this huge off-screen tragedy that had to be addressed within the context of this billion-dollar sequel to a billion-dollar grossing movie is so tricky. And I do think they handle it really well. I have some issues with this movie. I don't think it's as strong a movie as the first one. But I think it's really good. I think it, especially given everything that they were juggling here. And I agree with you a lot that it is very weighty. It's very emotional. There are moments that made me tear up, but I don't want people to think, as you said, the movie is not like wall to wall anguish. It is addressing, acknowledging, and giving the time it needs to this loss. But the movie is also an entertaining, superhero adventure.
And actually, all of that and all the ways that the characters in the film kind of deal with their grief and the fallout of T'Challa's death, informs the plot and deepens, what we get and how things play out. So it all, like I said, it all fits together really, really well. So well done to everyone, I think, because what a tough thing to tackle.
No, completely. I agree. And I really respected that. Yeah, everything, the weight of that character's loss, what it means to these people. Yeah, it affects a lot of choices in the movie. It affects a lot of where their mindset is at and times when they make mistakes. in a way that I think, yeah, felt very genuine.
Mm.
Let's talk about Namor, because this is a big deal. I interviewed Ryan Coogler, and we talked about how Namor's kind of the last of like a certain tier of Marvel character to never make it to live action. Like there's still other great characters we've never seen, but the fact that he goes back to 1939, has so much history, is just
Mm.
very powerful. There was a lot of excitement and interest in this. What did you think of the depiction of Namor here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought he was great. I think you said at the top here that this wasn't as strong a film as the first, and I agree with you. I think it's lacking maybe a spark that the first one had, although
Mm-hmm.
it does a lot of things really, really well. But one of the things is maybe Namor isn't quite as engaging a villain as Killmonger
Mm-hmm.
was in the first film. Although having said that, Tenoch, am I saying that right?
I believe
Huerta,
Tenoch Huerta, yeah, something
Tenoch,
like that. Mhm.
um, really does, it's to his credit that the character is actually as engaging as he is. The actor brings a lot of charisma to the role, I think. And he's got some fetching green trunks that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I thought Namor was done really well, and I agree with you that Huerta is very charismatic, very engaging. He's got some really interesting scenes with Shuri, sort of like showing him, I can show you my world. He's showing his world, and I think that stuff works really well. I did think about him in relation to Killmonger, and I think the one thing is that he's a little, if you take a step back, it's a little reminiscent of Killmonger in that it's once again a villain who, I say villain, but it's a guy who has a lot of legitimate grievances and
Yes.
concerns, but is, going about it the wrong way, and is like gone to sort of a level of, aggression that our heroes can't abide by.
Yeah.
So it felt a little repetitive of Killmonger, even
Mm.
though I think Namor as a character still stands out as a really cool character, that I'm glad we get to see here. But maybe that is another place where it's like, yeah, it can't quite match up to the first because we saw that done so well
Yeah.
with Killmonger the first time.
I thought of him as taking like a Cobra Kai type approach, strike first, strike hard, no
Yes.
mercy.
Yeah, I agree. I would have liked a little, I think the way they do a really good job. So we should talk about how Talokan is sort of invented for the movie. And even the idea to put Namor's history deeply into Mayan culture, Mayan history, is a change from the comics where he's from Atlantis. And I think it was a wise choice. I mean, Kugler and I talked about how both he felt that worked well with the Black Panther series and culturally, but also, frankly, makes it different from the Aquaman movies and the fact that we've seen Atlantis on screen before. And I think it does feel different from Atlantis. I actually would have liked a little more time in the actual city, which we only see briefly because most of Namor's scenes are sort of above ground or in caves. And I would have liked a little more time, maybe like, and I know he's not the title character, and they had a lot to deal with the Wakandans, but I did feel like I would have liked, and I guess it's a benefit. I really liked what we got of Talokan. I would have liked a little more of it. What do you think of the city itself?
Yeah, I agree with you. It was really well realized. I loved the underwater stuff more than I liked it in Aquaman.
Yeah.
If we're comparing underwater cities, and yes, I would have liked to spend more time there. But the purpose. I mean, he was. It was a paradise. It looked like a paradise.
Yeah.
And of course he wants to protect that, and that was his point, I think. But yes, I would have liked to have hung out with them down there a bit longer.
Right. I think we might get time in future films. We'll see. And I loved that they kept his little ankle wings, and that they flipped in the wind.
I mean, I know that he has those in the comics, but I was thinking how they must be so powerful. They're only tiny little wings. They look like it was like he had a couple of snitches on his ankles.
It is like that. That's a very good description of it. Maybe even the similar sound effect. Um, this movie is on the longer side for the MCU at 2 hours 41 minutes. Not the longest, when you have like of Endgame. I did feel it's a little overlong, but this is one of those places where I'm like forgiving of the movie because of its real life sort of weight of it, that I feel like I'm curious, Coogler, of course, doing press has talked about the original version of the script, which always had Namor, but when Chadwick Boseman was going to star in it, I'm guessing was probably a little more streamlined. And because they're dealing with this sort of fallout for all these different characters, there's points in the movie that feel a little more formless. And that's where I sort of dock it a little, but I didn't, and maybe it could have been like 10 minutes shorter, but I didn't feel like, this is going on forever. What do you think sort of the pacing of the film?
Yeah, it didn't feel long to me actually. It kept moving for me all the way through. But as I was watching, I have recently rewatched the deleted scenes from Black Panther, and it felt like where in that film, some of these scenes where there's one-on-one conversations to maybe deepen motivations and stuff, where they were cut from Black Panther, they were left in here, and that felt like maybe that was the difference to me. But yes, of course, being sensitive to tackling Chadwick Boseman's passing, they did the right thing, I think, in leaving those in for that reason. Yeah.
I guess specifically looking at like the supporting cast, and I've seen the movie twice now, and I will say I feel like I'm not sure. Well, I can talk. I know why to some extent, but I feel like we didn't need as much of Martin Freeman as Agent Ross as we got in this movie. Honestly, he probably could have been in one scene, maybe two. He's given a subplot that is the most like this is part of the bigger MCU. That felt extraneous in this movie specifically, I think more than others because of what it was doing. And I actually really, and kind of the counterpoint of that is I was surprised and a little disappointed about how long it takes to get Lupita Nyong'o back as Nakia in this movie. She doesn't she's brought in quite a bit into the movie, which is actually extra interesting because she wasn't in any of the Avengers movies. We haven't seen her since the first Black Panther, unlike most of this cast. So I was disappointed she wasn't in a little more, though she has some good stuff after we do see her. So I felt like a little more her, a little less Ross would have been my my balance there.
That sounds like a song.
Yeah.
but having said that, I did enjoy Ross's.
They were fun scenes, but they felt the most like ones you could pluck out the most,
Yes, absolutely, I do agree.
And then because there's the kind of his subplot is kind of MCU world building, and then of course the introduction of Riri, aka Ironheart, played by Dominique Thorne, who I thought, was a fun inclusion in the movie that didn't like take up too much time. She's there. She is sort of important to the plot because she is someone Namor is after. And I think, we get enough set up here. She's getting her own show next year on Disney Plus. What did you think of her character in the film?
Yeah, I thought she was great. And Dominique Thorne, who plays her, was brilliant and slotted in perfectly as a kind of a counter to the more formal way, I think, of the Wakandans, I think. But I was worried that she might be more of an annoying Peter Parker. I love Peter Parker, but more like that than she turned out to be. And I was really pleasantly surprised by the characterization. So a nice addition.
Yeah, and then this movie, I mean, I think we already saw this with the first film, but like Coogler's direction, he has like a weightiness and even dare I say a cinematic feel that some of these movies don't have as much, even though there's a franchise I love. I understand like when people are like they feel like episodes, it's like his stuff really stands out. I think I actually really liked in this movie that there's a lot of sort of battle/war scenes where it's like the stakes feel real. Like it feels like, like some of these people are dying, and it like feels like weighty in a way that sometimes these things can kind of feel like really like, oh, that's a CGI character, got taken out. Even though I didn't think the action was like spectacular, but I still kind of liked like that sort of weight that he brought to it, and the sort of the feeling that the stakes here were real. What do you think in general of the action stuff in the film?
Yeah, well, I really loved the way he shot. There was a sequence, a car chase early on that's
my favorite too.
Oh no, I was going to say that was not my favorite.
Oh, that's funny.
But the final set piece I thought was shot so well.
Yeah.
That the camera was going in all sorts of twisty directions and angles, and but not disorientatingly so, just really kind of kinetic. And but yes, it didn't kind of obscure the action. It totally added to it, and I was really impressed by the final sequence.
Yeah, he's I just think he's a very talented director,
Yeah.
and while like this movie, you know, as we said, is a little like less tight than not just the first Black Panther, but some of his other films, I think, you know, we all kind of understand why that is. And I still think throughout the movie, you really feel his vision and you feel sort of how confident he is with this
Yeah.
world, this corner of the MCU he's doing, to
Yeah.
the point that I'm very like, I know he will not confirm. I try to get him to that he's doing like a Wakanda TV series, but I'm like, I'd welcome it because I just feel like what he's doing is so great. And I also want to mention Ruth Carter's costume design, which she won an Oscar for the first one, but it's phenomenal. Like there were many times I don't think about that a lot, but I was like, that's a great costume. That's another great costume. All these great.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okoye's wardrobe was impressive this time, but Shuri's still got all her cool clothes. I wondered if maybe Luke Jacobson's been designing for her.
There might be some consulting going on there. And then I just, you know, look, I mean, think people could tell from the trailer alone, Angela Bassett is freaking fantastic in this movie. You kind of, you know, her skill is long known, but you know, because she's taking more of a center stage role here, I think she's just amazing. And I actually was quite impressed with Letitia Wright, who, you know, previously Shuri was like more of a comic relief character, someone, you know, to bounce off of T'Challa, and here for, you know, obvious story reasons, she has to be not only more centered, but much more serious because she is dealing with this loss of her brother. And I thought she was really good. I thought, you know, I was really impressed by her. And I thought, you know, her and Angela Bassett were great working with each other in the film.
Yeah, I agree. But Shuri was still funny at some
Yeah.
in some moments, and I loved that Denai Guerrera got to show a bit more of her funny bone as well. She really really jumped out to me more, the most her character has in the MCU so far, and I love that they've expanded Okoye's range a little bit.
Yep. Agreed. She's just another person who's just has such a great presence. They're like, I want to see more of her.
Yes.
And hopefully we will continue to. Well, those are our overall thoughts on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Kim, what would you give it out of 5 stars?
I'm gonna give it a 4-star verdict. I think I gave Black Panther 5, so not quite as on the money as the first film, but a really really great, one of my favorites in the MCU, I think.
I am also giving it 4 stars. I wouldn't say it's among my favorite, and as we both have said, you know, the first one I think is the stronger movie. But yeah, it's still a really impressive accomplishment. And I think, yeah, just the way that they handle dealing with, you know, something that, you know, it's because, you know, these people, it was a personal loss for them. I know that there's like even controversy about like, should they have just recast the role, which personally, I don't see how they could have, at least without taking a long break. I think the way they did it though feels really appropriate and respectful, and yet also delivers like, you know, a cool Black Panther movie. And that's very, very tricky to pull off. So kudos to Mr. Kugler on that one.
Kudos.
Kudos. So that is our thoughts on Black Panther Wakanda Forever, guys. Let us know what you thought as you start to see it. But like we said, we will be aiming to do that spoiler chat Monday coming out of the holiday. Thanks a lot, and keep it here at Fandom.